Aviva Lauer. As you can see, Aviva banana, as that is my favorite Seder food. And I am here with my friend and colleague, Reuven Margrett. Reuven, what is your favorite food?
Egg. It's really the egg in salt water.
Oh, okay, terrific. And we are here today. Well, what are we here? What are we doing here today? Well, let me say this. Last year at this time, I can say for myself that I think I was probably pretty numb. I think I was probably, I was maybe dumbstruck. I think a lot of us maybe were, like, what was going to be? What was the Seder going to be like? It was the first time that I was going to have a Seder. It was me and just two of my children. One of my children and their partner couldn't even get to us because we had a lockdown. What was that Seder going to look like? And now we have had an entire year to consider. I'm going to say something maybe subversive. Even when this nightmare, Corona, is over, what are some of the things that we want to do differently? What sort of enduring changes do we want to make in our lives? And today, Sunday, is Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So 2 weeks from last night is going to be the first Seder. And it is now the time to ask ourselves, what do we want, ideally, for this Seder or set of Sedarim to look like? What do we want to have look different this year and perhaps in years to come? So, Reuven, beginning of slide 1, what are our goals? Our goals are, as you can see, we are hoping that by the end of this hour and 10 minutes, we will all be renewed and refreshed and inspired for the Seder or Sedarim that we are running or having or being at this year. And we are hoping that we are going to expose you to some tools that will help you run at least one, but maybe more interactive activities at the Seder. So I would say this word interactive, this idea of what does it mean to be interactive, that is the answer. That's going to be the one word answer to our question, how do we want the Seder this year and hopefully for years to come to look or feel a little bit different than it has in the past? Interactivity, but what does that even mean? So in order for us to start, I am going to share with you in the chat, and you possibly have this already from before that was sent out to you, a source sheet. And I hope that you all will be able to open this source sheet. Give me a thumbs up if you can. If you, okay, I see some thumbs. Emily Matza, amazing. Carol Charoset, do you have it there? Hi, Carol. Okay, amazing, wonderful. So, next slide, Reuven. Let's learn about what interactivity really means. This is our source 1 on the sheet. We find out at the very end of the long talking section, the Magid section of the Haggadah, that the following: B'chol dor v'dor, in every generation, chayav adam lirot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim. Every person is obligated to see themselves as if they came out of Egypt. Shene'emar, as it says in the Torah, in Exodus 13, v'higaret levincha bayom hahu lemor, and you shall explain to your child on that day, ba'avur ze asa Adonai li b'tzeiti mimitzrayim. It is because of what God did for me when I left Egypt. So the Haggadah reminds us with this at the end of the whole talking section that we have to see ourselves as if we have all personally left Egypt. But I have to say, I am guessing that I am not the only one in the world to ask myself every year or many years, how are we meant to do something like that 3,300 years after it actually happened, right? It's a hard thing to do. David, is it a hard thing to do? Yeah, man, the answer is yeah, right? Look, I have never been to Egypt. Number one. I am not a slave to anyone. Number two. And it's 2021, okay? I don't like even know what this is talking about. What does this mean? How can we create a situation in which we act or we see ourselves as if we have personally, individually, actually left Egypt? And like I said before, so that was your cue for now. Reuven and my answer is being interactive. Okay, but again, what does being interactive mean? The answer to this, y'all with me? The answer to this, being interactive, has something to do with immersive theater. Okay? Breaking the fourth wall. What does it mean to break the fourth wall? Right? Theater, and normally you have the actors on stage and you have the audience watching them, and there's no interactivity between them. On TV as well, right? In movies, they're inside the TV, they're doing their thing. Obviously, I know they're not literally inside the TV, and the audience is separate. But this concept of breaking the fourth wall, it's when the wall in between the audience and the actors, or the characters really, is broken. So not only is there the audience being able to somehow come into the situation or the stage where the actors or characters are, but the characters are also able to come out to where the audience is. I'm going to give you an example, and this is from a totally not Seder-oriented TV show. But what I want you to do in the 30 seconds that you're going to be watching this clip, what I want you to do is look at how this main character, this is from a show called Gentleman Jack. If any of you have seen it, it's a really interesting, terrific show. But she, Ann Lister, the main character, you don't have to know what she's saying. In fact, you're not even going to hear what she's saying. You're going to see her talking, and there's going to be music over it. But look at how she is talking to you, Emily Matza. You, Arnold, right? You, Olivia Charoset. You, hi, Spencer. You, Spencer. Stu, right? I see Stu something, probably stewed.
Stewed celery.
Oh my God, awesome.
There's a story behind that.
Okay, great. I will be, hopefully when we get to my story of the banana, we will get to your stewed celery. Right, so notice now, please, how is Ann Lister breaking the fourth wall? Let's watch. Reuven, we're with you. Thanks, Reuven. I hope you all noticed. Hi, Fallon Schmidt. I hope you all noticed that last moment where Anne is talking to whomever she's talking to, but then she turns to you and she sort of winked, right? She was really communicating with you, the audience. And that is what Reuven and I think needs to happen in the Seder, right? Because we're not talking about being interactive with this person in 19th century England. We're talking about being proactively interactive, breaking the fourth wall between us and the text of the Haggadah, right? So that you can feel like the text has something to say to you about your own life, and you can feel that you have something to say about the text and the characters themselves. So there's something about breaking this wall between us and the text that will allow us to be interactive. let's move to the next slide, Reuven, and source 2. Just to show that it's not only our idea. What? Not that one. This one, yes. It's not just us. We can't take credit for it. Maimonides, the Rambam, he actually, in his version of the Haggadah, wrote something a little bit different than what we originally read 5 minutes ago. He says, instead of בכל דור ודור חייב אדם לראות את עצמו כאילו הוא יצא ממצרים. In every generation, a person is obligated to see themselves as if they left Egypt personally. Maimonides says every person is obligated להראות את עצמו, to show, to demonstrate, to proactively make him or herself seem as if they have just left Egypt. It's not just us. So there's something about this proactive nature, leharot, doing something, right? You are making something happen. It's not just washing over you. You, as the leader, as the guests, you have to make this happen. So let me ask you, what are some ways that the Seder that you already know is interactive or empowers us to be interactive? Put it in the chat. Plague toys, awesome, because the Haggadah says plague toys. The Haggadah itself, what are some examples of what? Reclining, terrific. Singing, oh boy, I gotta do this faster. Asking questions, yes. Eating foods that taste like what we're supposed to feel, amazing. The story of the 4 children, okay, so that leads to discussion, right? Drinking, dipping our finger in wine, doing all kinds of weird stuff. Yes, thank you. There is so much interesting call and response, responsive Dayenu. There's a lot of really interesting, already interactive stuff that happens based on what is written in the Haggadah. And the aim of our session right now is to really help amplify that interactivity that's already in it. Oh my gosh, definitely opening the door to Elijah for sure, right? Our goal is to amplify, to put on steroids, if that's okay to say, the interactivity that's already there. We want to define what it means to be interactive. We want to categorize what it means to be interactive, and we want to give it language, because we find that when we do that, we can go even deeper, much more deep than what we're used to, and be more even more rigorous about it. So without further ado, now that I have introduced us, Reuven, let's talk for a moment about, let's categorize it. Let's talk about it. What are all the different types of interactivity that we're going to try to demonstrate tonight?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aviva. Okay, so as we're thinking about interactivity, in order to help, as Aviva said, amplify it and make what can already be an interactive Seder an even more interactive Seder, is breaking down the learner text barrier. So Aviva already said, like, this breaking down the 4th wall, right? So we want to think about, what does it mean to break down that 4th wall between us and the text, the Haggadah, the Seder experience that we have in front of us. Okay, and so there's 3 ways, right? So there's you see those little dotted lines? That's the 4th wall, right? That's the barrier, right? And there's the Haggadah, that's the text. And there's the people at our Seder. So if you can just imagine the faces of the people around the table, maybe it's friends, maybe it's family, maybe, whoever it is, right? They're the people. And we need to try and get them in sync and interacting even more, right? So let's look at, there's one way of doing this, right? So the first way is the placement of the learners into the text, right? So what does that look like? Well, we have a stunning visual, which I spent hours on working today. They disappear. And they move, the people themselves move, as it were, into the text, right? We have that picture of Egypt behind us. Imagine moving into Egypt. Imagine moving into the Haggadah, whatever part of the Haggadah you're in. What is it like to be in Egypt? What's it like to be a slave in Mitzrayim? What's it like to be freed? What's it like? Let's put ourselves over there. How can we do that? And we'll be giving some examples. That's one way. But there's another way. This took more hours of time. This is when the text comes into our lives. That's when we take the ideas and the concepts that are in the Haggadah. What does that look like now for us in our world? What does slavery look like in our world, in my life? What does it mean for me to be free? How do we take the concepts which, or the events that happen thousands of years old, the commentaries which are hundreds of years old? What does that mean for us, me, our lives, the people sitting around this table? And finally, we added this one as well, the number C, group as community. We thought that was important as well. We thought that this group, we can see the people who weren't sure if we to do it, but we're looking around this group, we see this is an excellent group of people, right? You can look at the third one as well, right? And we can explore that. And I didn't really know how to do this, so this is how I did it. Oh, this is how I did it. Group as community. That's the idea that when we explore an idea, activities, when we do things together, we are enriched because of that experience. The interacting with other people helps the other person develop and think through their ideas, and it helps us develop and think through our ideas as well. Our interaction with the text becomes all the more deeper when we do it together, right? Anyone who's had a chevruta, a study partner experience, might have experienced that, hopefully has experienced that. Hopefully people who have had, when you have kind of the constructive discussions with people, like it's an enriching experience. And that's also something we want to focus on at the Seder as well, right? It's not just getting people to interact with the Haggadah and them have a great experience. We want to have a great experience together because it will all be all the more deeper and all the more richer because of that. Okay. That's the theory, all right? Up to this point, any questions, thoughts, concerns? Because I'm going to move on and give you some examples. Okay, great. All right, so what does this look like? This is from the Haggadah. I should have actually put that it was from the Haggadah. Always quote your sources. This is from the Haggadah. Avadim hayinu. We were slaves. Leparo b'Mitzrayim, to Paro in Egypt. V'yotzienu Adonai Eloheinu misham. And Hashem, our God, freed us or took us out from there. B'yad chazakah, with a mighty hand, with a zurah netuya, and an outstretched arm. Okay. So, what does this look like?
Well, I have it written down for December 30th.
Oh, great. Welcome everyone. And please feel free to mute yourselves, whoever just joined us. Okay, we're so happy you're here. This is great. Okay, so what does this look like? So let's look at, these are these three things, the three ways that we can, with kind of broad strokes of interactivity. It's certainly not exclusive. These are just kind of some ways for us to help think about how you might visualize your own Pesach Seder and the kind of things you want to do. Okay, so learner into text. Remember, that's when we put ourselves over there into the Haggadah. All right, let's do this. Okay, I'll give you just a couple of seconds to absorb this rather magnificent painting, The Exodus by Horace William Pefferwick. The Exodus. Okay. So where are we? Where are we in the Exodus story here? Someone could just raise their hand and I'll call on you. Where are we in the story? Yes, David.
So in a very small detail in the background, I see an Egyptian city.
Mhm.
And in the foreground, I see a very big group of Israelites passing through a desert. So, and I see a man in the foreground in white. And I would assume that that's Moses. So it's Moses leading the Jewish people out of Egypt. And what's striking to me, he's not at front, and he's not in the front. He's kind of standing in the side, overseeing and making sure that like everyone is coming and like everyone is there, and no one is being left behind.
Wow. David, thank you for sharing, right? Already David's 2 steps ahead. He's already what's Moshe thinking, right? Why is Moshe where he is there, right? So the miracles have already happened. The Jews have been kind of led out with Moses at the side, guiding the people. Remember, we're going, right, Avadim Hayinu, right? We were slaves, and now we've been freed. And this is the moment when the slavery has ended, completely ended, and they're leaving the place of slavery. Does anybody stand out for them in the crowd? If you look at the crowd, does anybody in particular from that crowd stand out to you? Again, please, if you just raise your hand. Oh yes, Laura.
There are a few people who are wearing really brightly colored clothes that I wouldn't associate with slavery. There are 2 people in red and 2 people in gold.
Okay, that gold, there's the gold person in the middle, right? What kind of emotion is he? What kind of emotion is he showing? And I'm going to ask OJL teacher 2. It's probably not your name. OGL teacher 2, your hands up. Okay, I'll try someone else. Lara.
To me, that person in gold looks really downtrodden and sort of like suffering, like using all of their strength to try to get somewhere. And I just a comment on the person in the white on the side. I'm not sure that I saw that originally as Moses. I thought Moshe was the person with the staff in the front of the crowd, and maybe the person on the white to the side is Aaron, doing some encouragement as Moses leads the way. But it looks like people are having a really hard time getting to their destination. Like it's a burden on them, and so it looks like they're maybe in need of some encouragement from the middle.
Right, that's so interesting. Right. What would you have imagined if you imagine, I guess like the children book or the cartoon book? What would you imagine the expression to have been?
I mean, I'm thinking of the Prince of Egypt, like Ashira, 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 like joy and excitement and happiness. But I could also see from the story that it would be an experience of extreme anxiety, of not knowing, and of struggle. Great, right? Anxiety, not knowing, struggle, right? Other thoughts. Naomi, Maror.
Yeah, the guy in the red behind the downtrodden guy in the gold, he looks like really, anxious, and like he's looking like, is there a way I can get out of here? Is there a way I can escape this line and go someplace else?
Right. Very, how can I get out of here? I just got out of there. Now
Exactly.
Wow. Right. It might not have been so simple, right? Then the kind of, yeah, we're out, we're free, and everyone's like jumping and dancing. Certainly the artist here has a different idea. Look, I'm going to pause it here. I find this fascinating. The more I look at this, and I only really saw it, as I was preparing for this. But it's really fascinating, like just the detail and strange thing. There's actually like a person off to the left kind of hiding in the background, and I'm like, who's that? Is that like Paro there, like someone or a Mitzri or a lost Jew, or I don't know. So lots of strange things. Anyway, the point is what we've done is we've taken ourselves, we've taken this group, and we've transported you back to someone's interpretation, Horace William Pefferwick's interpretation of what the Exodus might have looked like. And now we're putting ourselves in their shoes. Well, what do we think? Maybe we disagree. Maybe they would have been happy. Maybe they would have been, singing, Tehillim as they were coming out, or that's probably a bit anachronistic. They would have been singing, whatever, as I guess, as Yeshua. Well, who knows? Like, they'd have been happy, but here it's a different story. And, we can put ourselves in there, and that hopefully will make the experience of thinking about, Avadim Hayinu, and God took us, we were slaves, and then God took us out, right? Okay, well, what was the experience back then? Okay, so hopefully if this works. So, right, that was one idea, right, of learn it into text. Artwork, the Haggadot are filled with there's all these Haggadot have lots of pictures in them. Maybe use some of them. And if everyone doesn't have the same Haggadah, that can be okay. What does it look like in this Haggadah? What does it look like in that Haggadah? Like, why are they different? What are they trying to portray? Another idea we thought about, maybe some sort of bibliodrama, right? What does it feel like in their body to be a slave? What does slavery feel like? I know some people in some Seders, they take the matzah and they, someone puts it over their shoulder as if they were slaves and they were carrying something, and they were, so there might be different ways that we can think about of how we can bring ourselves and the participants around into the text and what's going on. So that was an example just for Avadim Hayinu, that we were slaves to Param Mitzrayim, and God took us out, right? And what that might have looked like to be a slave into freedom. Okay, let's move on to the next. Oh, hang on, no, abandon. Okay, it's fine. You can see what it's not a surprise. Okay, here's what I'd like you to do. Right, I'd like us to think about how slavery affects us today. Right, Aviva already said we're not in Mitzrayim. Right, we're not slaves. No one has a whip behind us and whipping us and telling us to build something. Right, but let's think about it. Right, in what ways are we slaves today? So I'll just give an example. Here's what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to just look around the room, right? So I'm just seeing this. I'll give you an example, right? I see this. This is a face mask, Has anyone seen one of these before? Is this like sending shivers down your spine, right? Okay. Right, I feel I've been a slave. I've been a slave to this, like for the last year, right? I haven't been able to go out. My kids haven't been going out, right? I've been a slave to COVID, right? COVID has been my paro. Right, and restricted me in so many ways. Okay, that's my example. I'd like everyone now, 20 seconds. You can get up, right? Find something around you. It can be literal, it can be conceptual, right? Find something that has enslaved you this year, this life, you choose, this week. Bring an object. Okay, great. Okay, Carol, can you explain your object? I think everyone's holding up the same object. Carol, yes.
Yeah, the iPhone, though, particularly in the morning, I keep telling myself I don't want it to be the first thing. It's not in my bedroom, but I look at it before I do anything else, and I end up reading news articles and stuff for like 20 minutes instead of, like, sometimes I'll say, all right, I'll just look at it for, 5 minutes or something, but it's always 20 or so.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carol. Who else? What did I see? Okay, what have we got? Kathy. There's two Kathys. It's the same Kathy. Stereo Kathy.
I had my phone.
Oh, okay. And for the same reason?
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
Okay. Any non-phone people? Oh, yes. Calm.
I think it's linked to being during a COVID scenario, but like sweet food has really taken over my life in a bad way.
Mm. Thank you. And, oh, Spencer. Whoa. Is that the same?
It's same deal. I have too many of these, but they're really good, and it's one of those things where if I've had a really stressful day and there's a million other things in my mind, it's something I can easily pick up and eat, and then I won't feel as horrible, but definitely not something I want to continue as a habit.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for sharing it. Aviva, what is that? Oh, the noodles. Wow, that's so good. Okay. That's not a banana. Okay. Okay, so that's an example, right? So thinking about modern day slavery, right? That's bringing an idea, Avadim Hayinu, we were slaves. Okay, but in what way are we slaves now, right? So we're taking something from the Haggadah and we're thinking, how does that apply to our lives, right? The lives of the people around this table, and getting them to think about that and explore that, right? So that was one idea. You know, we could do other things, fingers up and share, right? To what extent are you free, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, how free do you feel right now? How free? 10 if you feel really free. 1 if you don't feel free at all. How free do you feel right now? Right, I'm seeing 8, 6, 7, 5, 4, right? 2, right? Great. This is a great way, right, to open people up, right? Just a quick thing around to participants around you, you know, even if you don't get up and grab something, right? Just use your fingers, right? There might be times that you can do that. Okay, group as community, and I'm running. I know Aviva I'm running over time, so 1 more minute, right? Right. It's great. People could share, right? People could share. You know, why they held up the phone. Okay, but hang on, who shared? So, you know, Carol showed up the iPhone, Spencer showed the Pringles, Calm showed up sweets. Does anyone have a question? Would anyone have a question for Carol or Calm or Spencer? Carol held up the iPhone, Calm held up the sweets, and Spencer held up the Pringles. Does anyone have a question they'd like to ask them about that? I know we've only just got to know each other, so I know this is like it's not so easy. Naomi, you have a question?
Right, when we're talking about slavery, the examples that people used were things in which they chose to enslave themselves. I mean, where does choice come in? Like, in other words, slavery, when we're talking about slavery in Egypt, we were enslaved by outside. And how much choice do you think you have in terms of freeing your own self from the iPhone or from the Pringles or from the sweets or from whatever it is that people felt that they were enslaved by? I mean, the mask was more like, you know, an outsider saying, this is what you have to do. This is, you know, but the other things that people chose were self-inflicted slavery in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, how do you free yourself?
Okay, great. I'd love Carol, Calm, or Spencer to answer that. Can you please? Yeah, Carol, yeah.
It's not exactly an answer, but it does make, thinking about it makes me more sympathetic to the Jews in the desert, just in that it's very hard to free yourself of like old habits. And I don't know, it's not easy, even when you think you have a choice, you know, it's still hard.
Great, thank you. And if we had more time, I'd love to carry on this conversation, right? Maybe we could start thinking about, you know, these self-inflicted slaveries. Are there steps? Like, what can we do practically? You know, what's one change we could try and make in our lives this Pesach? What's something we can commit to at this Seder to get out of our slavery? For you around this table, us in this group, for us to get out of the slavery which we're experiencing now, right? And having that conversation as a group, as a community, will make it all the more deeper and all the more richer, because we can draw on each other's life experiences and understandings of the world, and we'll come out better for it. Okay. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to Aviva.
Thank you, Reuven. So those were just a few examples for the 3 different categories of interactivity that we've introduced to you tonight. And because Reuven and I are educators, teachers, we love protocols, right? So if for you to be able to figure out how you want to make a particular text of the Haggadah interactive for your Seder, we have a series of questions, and you can see them both in front of you on the screen and in your source sheet, source 4. So you'll be able to take this with you and use in the next couple of weeks figuring this out. So how does this work? What do you do in order to, what's your process for making a text proactively interactive? So the first thing you do, number 1, you have to choose which of the interactive goals are you going for, right? Are you interested in placing the learner into the text, right? Remember, we're breaking that 4th wall. So are we bringing the learner into the text? Are we bringing the text to the learner? Or are we dealing with the group as an interactive community? That's number 1. The next thing you do, right? This is your preparing. You have to really learn the text, right? The first time you look at the text can't be at the night of the Seder. If you are running or facilitating an interactive activity, proactive interactive activity. Yeah, there's a lot of acting in there. Ooh, acting, I like it. You have to really look at the text and think, what does this text actually mean? What do I really want to ask about this text? And then, so number 3 is compose compelling questions for your audience, right? You want to create an open-ended question, questions that don't have a yes or no answer, that are intriguing, that are relevant for your audience, right? So for example, right? I'm going to go back to a question that Reuven asked. What do you think Moshe is thinking in that piece of art? If you were Moshe, how would you be feeling right now, right? That's you bringing you into the text. If you were one of those Israelites, if you were the person in the yellow, what would you be noticing around you right now? Anything like that, right? Those are the kinds of compelling questions that you're going to be asking. And then finally, you are going to choose an activity, come up with some kind of interactive activity in order to make the text come alive. So you're going to draw from any kind of interesting activity you can come up with, a quiz show, like a board game, a drama exercise, any kind of movement techniques, any sort of activity that is just beyond sitting and reading the Haggadah. Okay, so these are the 4 steps that we're going to suggest that you use. I see that there's a question here in the chat. How do you suggest to make things interactive and have a deeper discussion on one aspect and balance with other content? Oh, and the needs for some participants to keep things moving. Excellent. Hold on to that. That is going to be the very last thing that we talk about today. Okay, Jeff, you promise you'll hold on to that for us? I'm assuming that you're going like this. I can't see your face right now, but yes, do that for us. So holding on to that question and holding on to this protocol of the 4 steps, what we're going to do now is Reuven and I separately in 2 different breakout rooms, we're going to try this with other parts of the Haggadah, okay? Each of us with our own interactive goal. So you are going to get the chance now to choose your own breakout room. If you come with me, we are going to, I'm already telling you, we will have chosen the interactive goal of placing the learner into the text. And we're going to be talking about the ritual foods of the Seder. If you go with Reuven,
yes,
tell us what we're doing.
If you go with me, we will be looking at the 4 children, right? There's the wise child, the evil, the wicked child, the simple child, and the child who doesn't know how to ask. And we'll be doing a little bit of both. We'll be both going to those children and then bringing those children to us as well. Aviva's going to be in room 1, and I'm going to be in room 2. and you are going to get to choose which room to be in. And Zoom should allow you to choose. So Aviva and food in room 1, me and the 4 children are going to be in room 2, and we'll come back at about 22 past, Aviva.
Yes. Just tell us, Reuven, how are we supposed to go into these breakout rooms that we are being allowed to choose?
Okay, we have something called an interactive Seder experience, right? A number of years ago, I think like 3 years ago, we created a companion to help people run their Seder night, right? Because we felt there was a need, people wanted more interactivity, and we wanted to give them more interactivity. So we got, and maybe Aviva, you could put the link in as well into the chat. So we got the faculty at the Pardes Center for Jewish Educators, as well as alumni of some of our educator programs, right? We have the day school educator program, and we have the experiential educators program. And we put our collective heads together and came up with a variety of activities for throughout the Haggadah that people could use. And that was really well received. So if you see there's like a little star there, we then a couple of years later came out with an expanded edition, and we put even more activities in there, right? They're ready-made activities, and I think you saw some like nice kind of graphics in Aviva's presentation, and in my group we saw some like nice graphics as well. It's pre-done, it's already made. We're not trying to sell you this, but it's free, it's there, it's just to help inspire you, right? So feel free to take, adapt, make it your own in whatever way you would want to use it. Okay, so we have that experience. It's like a PDF. It's like 40 pages, right? It's great. It's filled with great stuff. Now, for some people, like going through 40 pages, even that's not so interactive. So we also made a more we also made a more interactive version, and hopefully Aviva's putting that link in the chat as well. And we use amazing. We use a program called Sutori to do that. I'm just telling you, but it's called Sutori, and that we broke it up into the different sections, so it's a lot more easy to scroll through, and you'll be able to kind of focus in on the part of the Seder which you want to make more interactive. So that's there, it's out there. Feel free to use that. And if you're going to a Seder and someone else's Seder, feel free to send it to them. If you don't want to sit there for a few hours doing nothing, send it to them and say, hey, look, maybe you should try a few of these. Okay. So that's for you. There's lots of activities, so hopefully you'll find an activity, as well as hopefully we've demonstrated some activities throughout this hour. We have a couple of minutes left, so there's a couple of things which we'd like you to think about, right? And was that Jeff's question? Was it Jeff? Right, Jeff had the question of, Jeff?
How do you suggest to make things interactive and have a deeper discussion on one aspect and balance with other content and the needs for some participants to keep things moving? That was the question. Now, Reuven, do you want to hazard a guess? Do you want to try to answer this? Do you want me to try to answer this? What do you think?
Well, I'm sure.
Want to add something?
I'd say a few things, right? The first is, you can make the whole Seder interactive, right? The Seder could last for 24 hours, right? So you're going to have to choose. Right? Pick the pieces which you think are going to excite the audience the most, right? And one trick is if Chaim is the one who's always wanting to move on, maybe asking Chaim to start asking a question and ask Chaim, well, Chaim, what do you think about that? Oh, that's really interesting. Susan, what do you think about what Chaim just said? Wow, amazing, right? You probably want, people want to move through it because it's probably been boring, right? If something's not interesting, get through it quickly, right? So what we're trying to do is make it more interesting, right? Let's get the people involved. Let's create that community, right? And hopefully we've given you some ideas to do that. And start small, start small. So if you're not used to doing this, try and do one thing or maybe two things this Seder. See how it goes. Aviva, any more thoughts on that?
I'm going to say something extraordinarily subversive that I have never actually been able to get myself to do. I would say maybe don't do all of Magid. Maybe choose a few pieces that you think are going to be the most interesting and the most meaningful for interactive experiences. Maybe. So that way you're moving through it quicker because you're not doing all of it. Don't tell anyone I said that. There are 21 people here. It's between us.
Is it being recorded? I think this is recorded. We have to edit that bit out.
Oh, wow.
Calm, edit it out. Okay. Okay. So we need to wrap up, right? We're 1 minute over. What we'd like you to do in the chat is we'd like you to write down now, what's one way you hope your Seder will be new and different this year? In the chat, write down what's one way you hope your Seder will be new and different this year. I'm writing that in. One way.
Intentionality, moving, seeing the end of the tunnel. Yes, engaging, making something engaging even for the so-called wicked child's cousin. Yeah.
And report back how that went, please. We'd love to know. Thank you.
Participation, 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 involving the younger generation. I love it. Oh, everybody should walk away with one new inspiring idea, an aha moment. I love it. And engaging the 3-year-old all at the same time. Spencer, living your internal freedom. Excellent. All right, friends, we are so glad. Ooh, Amen, Amen, Ben. OJL, Ben. Hopefully this has been interesting and helpful for you. And we would love to tell you that in just 3 days' time, if you are potentially interested in hearing more about the Pardes Year program, we are very, very excited to have you share in the upcoming webinar this coming Wednesday, right? Reuven, you did it already. Oh, Carm did it. Oh, she's so good. Okay, right? We'd be very happy for you to join. And there are so many upcoming learning opportunities. There's always uninterrupted Torah here at Pardes. And one of them is the Pardes Daily Passover Challenge. It's happening now. So if you want to just get off this webinar and jump over to that, it'll be uninterrupted Torah, just constant Torah learning with Pardes. Thank you.
And I've just got to say it, those people who are slave to their iPhones, let's use that for good. There's an app. You can download the app and you can be a slave to Pardes Torah on your iPhone or Android device.
I think that's called freedom, actually.
Yes, thank you.
What's that thing you have, Reuven?
Yeah, Reuven, tell us about your phone.
No, we haven't got time. It's the smallest phone. It's so I don't become a slave. I don't become a slave. My master is a small master. So thank you.
Thank you all so much for being with us. I promise you, banana. Why banana? Because the blessing on it is Borei Pri Ha'adama. And everything, karpas, you can eat anything, Borei Pri Ha'adama for karpas. And that is my family's tradition. And bananas and salt water actually taste pretty darn good.